I hope everyone is back. So with this, we are going to start with the second session of the day. So this is from Gurugram chapter, how important it is to develop the learning culture. So before we start with the panel discussion, let me thanks you know, founding sponsor Innovation Roots. Innovation Roots is a leading consulting and training service provider helping organizations to achieve business agility and beyond. It is one of the leaders and pioneers of niche publishing services and well known for content collaboration with global thought leaders, authors, and creators. For more information, visit www.innovationroots.com. Do's and don'ts, please join 5 minutes before the start time. Use high quality speakers and headphones. Please keep your microphones muted and video disabled as this may cause disturbance and bandwidth issue. Questions will be taken via chat box. Facilitators, moderators will help to read out the few questions as per the time available. Please fill the feedback forms after the event to help us understand more about the event management and more sessions what you would be looking forward to hear from us. We appreciate your cooperation. Yeah, Vaibhav, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Prashant. Very good morning, everyone. I really appreciate you joining us on a Sunday morning when we all know there are many more important things to do. You sparing time for joining us in this session speaks volumes about how sincere you are about learning. And that's the reason why when we thought about picking up a topic, me and Prashant, we discussed, hey, why not do something about learning? And I said, that's an awesome idea. So we have gathered an esteemed panel of speakers today who are going to share with you a lot about the learning culture. I'll just give a quick introduction of myself and then we'll move on to our panelists. So myself, Vaibhav, I'm working as principal consultant with Status New. I have 19 plus years of total IT experience. I'm currently playing the role of an agile coach and have had experience playing the role of product manager, scrum master, and product owner. I've been very fortunate to be part of the Agile community, and I love that it's a never-ending learning journey. Okay, so we'll give the privilege of ladies first to Parul. Parul is an Agile coach advisory at Thoughtworks. She comes with 14 years of experience. She has traveled all over the world and worked with variety of industries, including retail, e-commerce, healthcare, manufacturing, banking, financial services, oil and gas. So, when I was reading about this with Parul, I wanted to ask her, hey, Parul, I think we can shorten the list by asking you, is there any industry left where you have not contributed? So her DNA is putting purpose into action and driving business agility. She thrives in team settings and values people she works with. When she is not in the agile space, so as to say, she's also working in theater and is a professional voiceover artist. So Parul, welcome aboard. It's a great privilege to have you here. Please supplement if you think I've missed anything in your introduction.
Thank you, Weber, and thank you, Prashant. I think you've covered everything, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion today. So thank you for that.
Wonderful. Moving on to Harsha, and now I'm moving in alphabetical order. So Harsha still calls himself a practicing, software engineer. He has been applying his learning of mathematics, computer science, and common sense, which, by the way, we all know is not that common. He has prior working experience at Tata Consultancy Services, for Technologies, R1 RCM, a very, very active contributor to Agile and DevOps communities. I've heard him speak at Agile NCR, Agile Network India, Agile Mumbai, Agile Gurugram, and Lean Kanban. And he also has worked across diverse cultures. His belief is progress versus perfection. So, Harsha, welcome aboard. So good to see you. So glad to have you here. Please fill in any gaps that I have left in introducing you.
Thanks, Vaibhav. You have done a fantastic work. Believe me, I'm humbled and looking forward for our discussion today.
Awesome. Okay, moving on to our next panelist. He is Neeraj. He is Head of Development SDP at Ericsson. He comes with 20 plus years of extensive enterprise software product development experience. He has been instrumental in driving the transformation journey of large monolithic products to cloud-based microservices supported architecture. You know, when I met Neeraj, he described himself as someone who loves to solve complicated problems and correcting systems which are not delivering optimal outputs. Ladies and gentlemen, that is systems thinking in nutshell. Okay, and I've not seen anyone describe it much better than Neeraj. Reach out to him if you want to learn about setting up and leading design practices for efficient product development, as well as driving engineering KPIs. Neeraj, once again, it's my proud privilege to introduce you and have you here in the panel. So good to see you. Welcome aboard, and please fill in any gaps that I might have left in your introduction.
Yeah, I think most of the things you've covered, Vaibhav. I think one thing which I would like to add is my agile journey. We started, sometime around 8 to 10 years back, and we were supported by Thoughtworks, Parul's organization at that point in time. So if you still, I don't know if Mansi is still there at Thoughtworks or not, but he was the one who supported us in our transformation journey. And I must say that we see real benefits in terms of moving from SDLC to Agile, especially from a product development perspective. It's not that many organizations, focus on, you know, enterprise product development. So that is a very niche space that we are in, and we have seen real benefit in terms of moving to agile and incorporating learning to have a strong team who can help and support us.
Wonderful, wonderful. So it's a small world, and I think that's what it tells me. All right, I'll jump right into the discussion. Okay, so Parul, allow me to start with you. Uh, how will you define a learning culture?
So before I define a learning culture, let's go back to the origin of learning culture, the concept of learning culture. And it dates back to about 1980s when the whole issue of organizational culture was being debated. And through those debates, we came through a clear idea of what learning culture looks like for organizations. And most of you may remember the book, The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge, which talks about the why, the what, and the how of implementing learning culture. Learning culture, according to me, is not about having a L&D culture or the number of trainings we have had in an organization or the certification that employees have. I think learning culture is a set of values, practices that encourage individuals and organizations to innovate, to increase knowledge, competency, and performance. And I look at learning culture with main four characteristics which organizations should have. Number one being continuous improvement, where I feel continuous improvement should be core of solutions, products, and processes, whether it's developing the MVPs and pivoting if things don't work, getting customer feedback constantly, because that only helps us in improving our product quality. And if you look at Agile, PDCA, plan, develop, check, and act. The second characteristic that I see for a learning culture is having an open culture where everyone is encouraged to communicate, to admit of any mistakes that they make, and practice frequent cycle of feedback. Because when we find a problem, these kind of organizations try to solve the problem rather than have that blame culture between them. The third characteristic would be experimental mindset, because without experiments, we cannot innovate. And there is a very famous saying by Einstein, which I can remember, which says that I have not failed, I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work. And with that, I'll bring you to the last characteristic, which I think is very fundamental in learning culture, and somebody from the audience also spoke about it, is the space. So, how can organizations create space for building knowledge, for sharing knowledge, and for recreating knowledge? Because a lot of times we try to focus on building knowledge, but sharing and recreating knowledge is somewhere it get missed out. So I think that's how I would want to define learning culture.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Parul, you made some great points there. That a learning culture is not about L&D. It's not about how many certifications your employees have got or something. It's more about the set of values that encourage innovation, that builds competence. It's about open space, and it's about creating a learning space where we not only build knowledge, but we also share knowledge. Neeraj, I would like to come to you, although this is going to be a tough question for you. I think Parul has given a very comprehensive definition. Would
Yeah.
you like to add to that definition? And I would like you to take this discussion, I mean, add to the definition and talk about what does a learning culture actually look like?
Yeah, I think Parul leaves very little scope of adding, it. But I'll still try to add my bit. See what I feel, or how we define learning is we define it in under four paradigms. So at the core of learning, it is always individual, and that individual has to take ownership and accountability. As an organization, you may define strategy, you may define targets, anything. Uh, but until unless individual sees value in that learning for himself or herself, that learning never comes. So that is the first thing I think, which we try to inculcate habit in our people, that you know we are doing this, we have this learning, but then first thing is it is you who is at the center of this learning. And then next is organization. Of course, if at an organization level we have skilled people, definitely organization will have value. But first of all, you as an individual will have that value. And then another dimension which we do is more of strategic and operative learning. So as a strategic, we try to see how the organization or the industry is moving in which space. You know, we see that, what is which is coming up in next 1 to 3 years, what is coming, what we see is, maybe a little bit far away from 3 to 5 years. And that is how we try to define our strategy from a learning perspective and define our focus, that this is something which will come in next 1 to 3 years, so we need to put a little bit higher focus, more people in this area. And then 3 to 5 we put few people who do these talks or something. So that is how another dimension which we bring in. And then another thing which we have just started, which we haven't yet matured, is going to the academia. So we are trying to engage with one of the institute and try to do some more, sponsorship, and have a collaborative way of learning, so that we learn from academia, we give our problem statement, so they have real problem statement to work on, and we get benefit from the outcome and the research and those kind of things. These are few add-ons to how we are trying to imbibe that learning in our organization.
That is wonderful, and this is a great idea. Reaching out to academia so that they have the real case studies, real problems to work upon. Uh, you know, I remember when I was in college, and everybody else was either creating a library management system or an inventory management system or a warehouse management system, and I was like, how many systems are there? How many times do we need to create this? Why are we not working on real problems? So that's a great insight, Neeraj. Harsha, I would like to move on to you. So let's now talk about from a team's level perspective. I hope many of our audience here work in teams, and today working in teams is the way to go. So, in your experience, what do you think teams can do to develop a learning culture?
Sure. Thank you, Vaibhav, and thanks, Parul and Neeraj, for really defining or setting the stage for us to take this discussion forward. So, Vaibhav, say what team can, I think your question is, hey, how can a team can think or develop a learning culture? To setting a context, I'll just give one or two examples here. One I just recently read in the newspaper when Eli Chalot, who's the president and CEO of GE Healthcare, is visiting Bangalore, and he talked about, hey, what are the things that come to in his mind when he talked to his customers, partners, or employees in Bangalore last week when I was visiting for India as a brand. And he's like innovation and agility. These are the two things in his mind. So how I see too is, as we talk about learning culture, it is all about defining our character, and we can be individual. So it's very easy to look at the individual character, as we all have been talking about it. Like, it's about what people say about you when you leave the room. That's your brand, right? Same goes to the team, same goes to the organization, same goes to the country, right? Giving another example of Microsoft, I've been working through them in some of the common projects that they were doing, is how Microsoft, they say MSIDC, right? Microsoft India Development Center in Hyderabad, branded themselves today as a center who is developing Microsoft Teams or Office 365 suites of products that we talk about. It didn't start from there. It started through a hackathon, people participated, and that's why actually 365 came into place. But a lot of energetic coming forward engineers from Hyderabad Center, they have been kind of participating, contributing, and then over a period of time, that become your strength. And Hyderabad IDC for Microsoft become a choice of location or choice center for the people to go, so that okay, they can develop the tool which is more collaborative, because they see what they found there, the personas by on the engineers or the product people are the thinkers, collaborators, and doers coming together. It was not one of them; they were all three of them. So taking a kind of learning from there, how I see is, what do you think this team can do is simple two things. One is how they can surround themselves with the people with the different styles and strengths and perspective. We have a general tendencies of keeping ourselves acquainted or around us people who are like us. So even in the right around us, but it's a little flip part of it, how you can be consciously being around with the people who are different, who are kind of bringing a different perspective, right? And that will allow us to see us more realistic, making more complete, right? Learn from different perspective. We use the word inclusion, diversity. Here I'm just from a learning perspective, is inclusion, diversity is looking at people who bring a different kind of thinking, different perspective. You need a product people, you need people who are very good collaborator, who can bring teams together. You need people who thinks like 6 months down the line. You need people who 6 years down the line. And then of course you need people who can execute that reality. So I believe the one thing that we all should be doing is how a team can be formed with a diverse culture, and that will truly give a brand to the team, brand to the organization, and that brand is actually your culture, and that comes from learning. So that's how I would like to sum up for the how a team can think about a learning culture here.
No, this is wonderful. And when you were referring to that interview, to that bite from the gentleman, and he said that okay, the two words that comes to his mind when he thinks about India is innovation and agility. I think that should swell all of us up. I think that's something to feel proud. Where people used to say, oh, you know what, Indians are the most rigid people in the world, to this, I think we have definitely come a long way. Okay, and I really loved what you said, Harsha, there, and I'd like to repeat it for the benefit of our audience. Excuse me. You talked about that learning culture is developing a character. I think that's something which is very, very important and something which is very, very powerful. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Baba.
I picked up something else also. I think you talked about hackathon, okay, and I presume all of our audience are aware about hackathon. If not, as Prashant mentioned, put that as a question, and we'll talk more about this in our Q&A session or something. What I'm taking from your comment, Harsha, is that hackathon is one practice which teams can use to develop a learning culture. I would like to just one or two sentences hear from you and from other panelists how true this statement is. Is this a correct takeaway? Harsha, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. So as I said, I think, and especially as I said in my introduction as well, I'm a practicing software engineer. I feel proud to be say that. What does it really mean is how we are grounded. Doesn't matter what role we are playing, how many numbers we added into our profile and whatnot. Is how are we really coming forward to solve a problem, attempting a problem, right? And hackathon is a way to get into an area to really do something in a 1 day, 2 day, 3 days. I mean, because you just wanted to do experimentation, and then believe me, I'm so amazed these days. What's happening is lot of hiring practices are happening from there. A lot of collaboration with all the engineering colleges are happening through this. So it is all about doing things. Actually, true meaning of learning there. It's not about doing a certification. It's not about doing a degree because that has its own foundational benefit. I'm not kind of denying that part of it. But hackathon is a way to celebrate engineering in a way that you pick up a problem, set of people come together, you try to kind of attempt to a working product or at least a part of it and just try to get into the entire cycle to see how that it goes, right? And idea is how can you put a very visual end to end, whatever flow you take, try to do a demonstrate that it is working, and then from there you pick on. So I certainly see from solving a problem, hackathon is one of the nicest way of picking it up, thinking through it, and then working together, right? Again, important success here will also come when you have a different kind of people coming. Somebody will give ideas of the product, the feature, somebody will talk more about its values, somebody will be good in even presenting it. Those are so
Awesome.
important. So
Awesome.
that's
Awesome.
how we look at it.
Parul has been on unmute for quite some time, so I'll give it to Parul. Parul, what's your take on using hackathon as a practice to build learning culture in teams?
So a plus one first to Harsha. I think hackathons play a very important role, especially for the people, young people. I've seen people are just joining in colleges, and I think it creates a collaborative space for you to ideate, learn at the same time. And I think it's very good for even community building because you identify that some people of same thinking thought process come together, and it's not just the development team. You have business analysts, you have data designers, other people who join together to work on it. And I think it's in a way gamifying the whole process of learning. I think hackathons do that, so I think it's a great platform.
Wow, gamifying the whole process of learning. That's amazing, and I think that's a topic for a separate conversation altogether. Neeraj, quick take from you regarding using
Uh,
hackathon as a practice for
yeah,
building learning culture in teams.
definitely. I think it's not only new learning culture, it's more about, I mean, what we have seen is many of our new product transformations have come through hackathon. I mean, as I said, we have this monolithic product and we transform them to cloud based. And those ideas, those things, they started from a hackathon only. I mean, it was just, the initial step was taken there, and then you demonstrate, then you put that business proposal up, and then you move that. So for sure. But apart from hackathon, another thing which we do, I mean, I don't know whether that's an industry norm or whatever, but we call it breakathon. So what we try to do in that is we try to take one part of the product and we try to break it and see how robust it is. Uh, in an enterprise product which is more into B2B space with 99.999% uptime, we really cannot afford downtime. We really cannot afford customer issues. So we every quarter or 6 months we take one part of the product, the whole team works to break it. I mean, they try to define, think of different use cases. You develop a product based on certain use cases, and then over the period of time, those use cases mature, or the customer starts to put that product with a different set of use cases which you haven't thought of during the development, and that is when you start realizing, oh yeah, maybe I need to now do something more. So that is an additional thing which we do, and which helps us or has been helping us. Yeah.
Interesting. I think you have a breakathon is something I've never heard of before. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think now we all have heard that quotation. If it is broken, you must fix it. You should fix it. I'm paraphrasing here, of course. I think as per Neeraj, the new quote should be, even if it is not broken, you should fix it. So
I mean, what we say is, if everything is green, that's a big red sign.
Wow. So many nuggets. You remind me of watermelon reports. But again, so audience, if you want to know what watermelon reports are, type in a question in the chat and we will take it up in the Q&A. Okay. So Neeraj, while I have you on unmute, I want to hear from you, what problem do you think we can solve by adopting a learning culture?
Any problem. You bring up any problem and it will be solved. I mean, I really cannot think of any problem which you cannot solve by learning culture.
Okay, wonderful. Harsha, what's your take on this? What problems do you think you can solve by adopting a learning culture?
I believe if when we are talking about what problem we can solve, right? I think so. I'm not trivializing the part of like, hey, we can solve everything, or kind of this learning culture will help us solve all the problems. But what really takes us is bringing in a culture, two things that if it start giving to us, that is what you enable team and take us to a high performing team, a kind of construct, and which that means you gives the most out of it, right? So we typically talk about all the values, that what are we doing as a team, what is the value we offer, as a product what value we offer, as a structure, whatever the way we are structured, right? We in the earlier sessions, I know people have been asking, is the safe, is the or the scale agile, or what we save in that. So different kind of connotation how we are organized as it giving. Now learning culture, what it really help us is giving you a growth mindset, which means it not only help you thinking about the current, it enable you for the future. And then what is happens is create in a culture where you appreciate actually people talking about future. You appreciate, I think, the way Neeraj was saying, you don't wait things for the to fail and then you go and fix it, right? You start more experimentation. So that is how I see it is the culture will bring you to do more experimentation, allow team to bring a different perspective, and then could be the things of today or could be the thing of future. So that's how I see a difference that a learning culture truly brings, and helps you solving those problems, right? And an important part for me here is how we can see through future which is coming. I mean, that's a game changer there. Yeah.
Yep, how we can see the future that is coming. Wow. Okay, Parul, I'd like to come back to you. Will you be kind enough to share some insights or observations about learning culture at Thoughtworks?
Wow, thank you, Vaibhav. Actually, I'm really glad that you asked that question. And so let me tell you a little bit about ThoughtWorks learning culture. So ThoughtWorks is dev at core organization, and learning is core for ThoughtWorks. And our values of cultivation, pursuit of excellence, courage, and autonomy resonates to that. I will talk about some of the practices that we have in ThoughtWorks, which talks about the learning culture. There are a lot of them, but I'm just going to focus on few of them. So we have innovation labs at ThoughtWorks. It is a community where, with the vision of a startup culture, building capabilities and creating that competitive edge, for our customers, which is a benefit, I think, of the learning culture. So we have innovation labs. We also run hackathons within the organization throughout the year. We also have role-specific communities like BA community, dev community, QA community, with the aim to build, share, and recreate knowledge. We also have a lot of events which are open to people outside of Thoughtworks. So we believe in collaborating and learning with a larger community. So we have a Biz Night, which is a BA PO community event, which is outside of Thoughtworks, where people can collaborate together. We also have Geek Night, which is for the technical forum. The other two things that I want to talk about, which I find very unique at Thoughtworks, is that every person at Thoughtworks has a mentor, which helps them in their learning and growth journey. And yeah, which is very unique. I found it really unique when I joined Thoughtworks. And the other thing that I want to talk about is that we actually have something like a fail conference where we celebrate failures, and that's actually part of our learning
Wow.
culture.
Wow. Tell me more. You did I get it right? You mean a fail conference? Is that
Yes,
what you call it? Is that a name?
it's called Fail Conf. It happens at
Fail
India
conf.
office.
Wow.
Yes.
So what happens there? Tell me more.
So at FailCons, what we do is we have speakers, we have leaders who share their personal failures, project failures, or any other failures that they have encountered, and how they have been able to pivot around it. Because that is something that we want to share, so that we create that culture of psychological safety, where it's you're open to experiment, you fail, and you learn. So I think that's what I feel very unique that we have at ThoughtWorks, where we celebrate failures as a learning opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. We keep on hearing this fail fast, learn fast, but never do we see how to manifest that. And I think this is an awesome idea. And I presume our listeners are getting as much as I am getting out of it. So, Parul, what you have just mentioned is kind of like the best practices which anyone can adopt, which anyone can follow to have a learning culture within their team, within their organization. Okay, so we talked about innovation labs, we have talked about hackathon, we have talked about role-specific community, we have talked about geek nights, having a mentor for everyone, and icing on the cake, the fail conf or the fail conference, whatever you want to call it. Thank you so much for those. Harsha, I just want to circle back on what you were talking about earlier. You were talking about growth mindset and experimentation. And that reminded me about the agile ways of working. And what I'm curious about is what role do you think learning culture plays for a team who is operating using agile ways of working or who is at least trying to be agile?
Absolutely, Vaibhav. And it goes hand in hand. And thank you for really asking, because I was also trying to go and correlate this, and I'm just reflecting my experiences here. So as we all know that agile ways of working has remarkably helped all of us in transitioning from a typical command and control way to communicate and collaborate way of delivering results, right? That's the kind of paradigm shift that has happened, whichever model you follow, right? And I think as agile is kind of certainly one piece of agile, we all take it from the manifesto is okay, how it is advocating, inspect, and adapt kind of mindset. And so is our learning culture today, which is all about continuous learning. As I was talking about, I think those days are gone when we really invest in the long-term certification programs, long-term degree programs. Now we are talking about all those micro learnings. It's all about giving us smaller sorts, right? Whatever is needed today, right? And then make learning available for everyone. So it doesn't, it is not like, okay, I mean, spending a, okay, who's in analysis, you figure out what is my training needs, and then somebody will approve, and then the training will available in another quarter. Those days are gone. I mean, how can we make learning more democratized? Of course, within an ecosystem, so that all this micro learning, those things or the smaller sorts are available for everyone, and as and when you need, you can kind of go and pick it up, right? So the agile ways of thinking has been truly helped me here is one main thing that Agile help us is all the traditional way of measuring success have gone away in the Agile way, right? All the time, cost, and the way we have been measuring, right? We become more, the measurement is defined by the team. So you define, okay, what is the definition of ready? What is the definition of done? What is the success looks like, right? And then and those things also you're able to kind of, again, in the true spirit of inspect and adapt, go in evolving it. And so is the learning, how I see. So let's say we still have in our kind of traditional way of measuring learning is, okay, how many number of hours per employee in a year you should spend on training? How many dollar do you put for employee? I mean, you still need a dollar to put it, but that is not give you the measure of success, right? What you give the measure of success now is completely different. Again, I would suggest it is all defined by the team. So there is no kind of one or two formula that goes. But a typical example that I would like to see, and one of them was Parul was just saying, and I'll add another one which I was alluding to it earlier. Look at some of the attributes of asking questions when you are getting into the planning session, when you are getting into the demo sessions, or when you are having into any leadership talk that's happening. Look at it. Are you getting enough hands raised? People asking questions, and when you start looking at the nature of those questions, meaning questions come in many shapes, right? It is not about just people ask something the way you are talking and pick up things from there. People do have their own ideas, right? People have the completely different view that you are talking. Do you see those things coming, right? And then I believe if team are pretty much, as we are talking here, in if they are kind of an agile team operating in agile ways, these are very natural to the team, because agile tells you to ask those questions, ask about the values of the stories that you are developing, features that we are developing, asking those questions. So this is, in my view, if you are having true being agile, not just doing agile kind of thing, this learning culture will certainly, it will help you. Actually, you by design, you are into a learning culture. By design, that will help you. And
Wonderful.
certainly the topic is the psychological safety part of it, which is all about, hey, accepting the failure. It is not about all the stories that we do is all to be accepted. There are certain things that will receive the feedback. We will move those stories or we drop those
Yes.
stories. And same thing should
Yes.
apply in the learning culture as well. You pick up things, but it has to be quick, right? As we are talking, the cycles should be smaller so that we don't really far go and keep investing into it. We are kind of in a certain distance and speed which you see those feedback, you can, like with all the good confidence, and will all kind of failure is acceptable way, you drop those things, pick up
Absolutely.
something and keep going it from there. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's wonderful. So, listeners, we are less than 3 minutes from the allotted time to us. I am having a hell lot of a time here. I can probably continue this till evening, but I think that will be unfair to the speakers and panelists lined up after that. And plus, Prashant is not going to like me anymore if I do that. So, if you have any questions, please, a gentle reminder, we are going to have a Q&A round in approximately 2 minutes from now. Please type in your questions. I've received few questions. We'll take that up in the Q&A round in less than 2 minutes. So Neeraj, that also gives you the time limit in which you can answer the next question, which is for you.
Sure.
So many times, we hear people are very comfortable in their comfort zone. They don't want to learn anything new. I'm sure
Hmm.
you must have faced a situation like that.
Yeah.
So, what will be your advice to team leads or scrum masters or leaders when they are dealing with resistance to learning?
I think in such situations there is it's not a physics theory, I would say. It's more of human psychology and human emotions that you need to deal with it. So there would be different options. You really need to talk to that person, understand his or her challenges, and most important aspect is you need to make sure that that you present the value proposition to that person, that what is it that that person will gain by learning. And that is where things will start. And of course it will require patience, so you will have to be patient. You will have to share few examples, and then you have to be very sensitive that you are not hurting the pride of the person. So that is how, I have been at least trying to do these things. There has been instances, definitely, where people do get into comfort zone, but then slowly, when you're moving people across different teams, these budget discussions, they keep on happening in every organization. So you need to move people from one product to another product, or one project to another project, or one role to another role. So depending on where the need is. So of course, then you need to visualize what is the value addition for that person, and also ensure that when he or she is moving to that new role, he or she will not lose the value, or the brand which he has or she has created for himself or herself. So these are few things that I always try to strive, and I always tell my people to take care of.
So
Vaibhav,
patience and emotional
can I add
intelligence.
something little contrary view here, Vaibhav?
Yeah, sure.
But so I think as Neeraj was talking, right, and I was thinking through it, and I have read that somewhere, like our human brain, and then believe me, you will always get contrary view all the time. Our human brain has two distinct characteristics. One is it's incredibly flexible. I mean, I don't remember the percentage, but it says that we use only a very small fraction of our brain, and rest all are useless throughout our life. And that's how some people can go to whatever extent they go, right, because of the flexibility of the brain. At the same time, the human brain craves for comfort and seeks to avoid any difficult task. So it's all about training your brain. Your brain is like two elements completely opposite to each other. One is like it can go to any limit, another is like it slows you down. So it's all about practicing your brain to where you wanted to go. And I was just thinking that's why it is not just one formula. You need to train, and that's how learning things help you train your brain first, train yourself, right? Like mindfulness management, and there are a lot of other things that exist today. People use burnout and other stuff, which is, in my view, it is all about training your own brain first. You can go either way. You can completely go lazy and believe like, okay, I'm done, and that's my end of the day. Versus the same 24 hours, you can do crazy things as well. So
Cool. So training your brain 24/7. Wow,
yeah,
awesome. Okay, so I think we are almost on time here. I think it's now time for the Q&A session. So audience, if you have any questions, please write it down in the chat window. Just message it to us in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to take it up for you. I've got one question from Padma. She says, "What are those watermelon codes?" So it's actually a watermelon report, and what the watermelon report says, so it's summertime, you all will be dreaming about watermelon. So what is watermelon? Watermelon is green from outside, red from inside. So when we have those status reports which are all green from inside, but if you actually go and look at your project, it's red all over. So that's basically what is the concept of watermelon report. Okay, so Parul, I'll direct this thing to you. I think this question came when you were talking about the learning culture at Thoughtworks. I think Amar wants to know, how about performance appraisal, peer ranking, rating hike, promotions? Any thoughts on that
From a learning
with
culture
respect to learning
perspective, is that
culture?
the question?
Yeah, yeah.
So I wouldn't talk about ThoughtWorks in general, because in ThoughtWorks, individuals drive their own growth path. That's how
Wow.
it is. We write our own goals. We discuss it with our mentors, which we call guide, and that's how it happens at ThoughtWorks. So we don't have this formal appraisal ways of doing it. It's very different, because we believe that your learning is in your hand. So as we, Neeraj and Harsha, we were talking about the comfort zone. You don't really get into the comfort zone because your learning is in your hand, and make path for your growth path. But you get all the support from the organization. You get all the help from the organization. So that's how it works.
Cool. Thank you so much. Harsha and Neeraj, would you like to add anything to that in response to that question?
I will. So let me tell you two things. One is when we talk about the performance appraisal, peer ranking, rating high, promotion, I think there are too many things kind of here. I tell you, even in my organization, current and even in the past, we have been using a typical bell curve, and then, but even there, take a step back. You just look at your team, and then for anything, not for the end of year appraisal and those kind of stuff, even for going to an event, just ask those and then pick up something which is kind of generic enough, right? Now you will pick up people, you will see normal distribution statistically is somewhere you put in population. You will try to get people who may like it, you will try to people who get in extreme, who are very liking it, and there are certain people who are in the middle. So that is how is this a statistical proven thing? You pick a population, there are people who got into any of the stream, most of the people will still sit in the middle kind of stuff. They are trying to be on either side of it. Now, when we look at the performance appraisal and things like that, we try to look at, is this the best thing? We need to look at just as a system. And as I was talking about how things have been changing in many of the organizations, including ours, is again those micro affirmations has been playing a larger role. It's not about you taking a feedback, 360 feedback, use the word, with your peers, colleagues, customers whom you work, only at the end of the year. How you keep getting it on a regular basis. And it is not that a manager asks and those people give. I mean, if that is happening, that means we are yet to catch up a lot. It's all micro affirmations, and as and when things are happening, you feel like sharing the feedback. If somebody has done a great job today, I should feel like, okay, I should go and acknowledge that person, right? And across the board. So some of when these things started happening, you see these end of year conversations, and you stop kind of being a critique or liking it a model. You keep getting those input and feedback throughout the year. How systemical it is, leave it to the organization and the maturity that we are. But that's where it is changing. All about doing it on time, in time. Those micro kind of conversations, micro affirmations, micro kind of listening. Those things are truly helping
Love
things.
that. Love that. That's an awesome concept. Micro affirmations. I think that's wonderful. Micro affirmations and micro conversations. Wow. Harsha, that sounds like a book title to me, and I think you should seriously consider that per se. All right, talking about books, since I do not have any more questions. So audience, I have I've shared with you the LinkedIn IDs of all our panelists here. Please feel free to connect with them, and you are more than welcome to carry on this conversation with them on LinkedIn. So just to conclude, one final question to all of you. Do you have any book recommendations? So Harsha has already beaten me to it. His book recommendation is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. Any book recommendation from you, Parul?
So I actually got the book. So it's called The Quiet Leadership. It's a book which I recommend to everybody. It talks about transforming, empowering your teams to work to the next level. So I think this is a great book for all leaders and all everybody to look for. It's by David Rock. Quiet
The
Leadership
the
by David Rock.
The Quiet Leadership by David Rock. Awesome. Thank you, Parul. Neeraj, any book recommendation from your end?
I am reading, it's a bit old book, so maybe many of you would have already read it, The Outliers by Gladwell. So that is one which I am reading right now. I am liking it, especially, which is giving the perspective of, how, some people are able to do better than, others. So what is the history, or, how our past experiences are shaping our present. So it's a good book in that sense. So you can go through it. I can share it. This so
Thanks, Parul, for typing in the name of the book and for showing it as well. And thanks, Neeraj, for showing the name. I think Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell.
glad that
Awesome.
yeah. Mm.
Guys, I can't thank you enough. I think this was a wonderful conversation. There were a lot of nuggets, there were a lot of insights, there were a lot of new learnings for me. I'm not sure about my learning culture, but my learning definitely got enhanced today. And I hope that's the same for the audience as well. Once again, thank you so much for sparing your time on a Sunday morning, coming here, talking to us, about the learning culture, and for that I can't thank you enough.